Hi, guys, and welcome to Trucking Along with Kirsty. That's me, your positive voice in trucking. I want to say happy Halloween to all you guys. We'll see who pops in here. It's been a while since I've done a live, and I have lots of updates for you. And, maybe if you stick around later on tonight, then we'll get to talking about spooky, eerie stories. Halloween's always one of my favorite holidays, and I used to do some crazy stuff. Scramble North, how you doing tonight? And Wombats, thanks for popping in. Uh, I came into trucking because I hated my job at the post office. And hey, Barry and Chase America, good to see you guys. You guys can hear me okay, right? Give me a thumbs up. So it just happens to be that 8 years ago tonight, 8 years ago tonight, I got my CDL here at Prime Inc. And it has been a crazy, crazy journey. Um, I never expected it just flew by. And I never really expected to stay this long. I really thought that I was going to be here a year and go. And, you know, as I've sat here i- in Prime and I've sat on YouTube and I watch these people that come and go and they come and go and nobody's ever happy. Do you guys ever realize that? Did you ever notice that when they come in, they're always looking for something else? Like, they don't ever just sit back and appreciate what they have. Um, and I'll admit that I've done that, from time to time, and things are tough. Things are tough right now. I'm hoping all you guys are making money and staying safe and especially staying warm because Lord knows they're getting hammered out with snow out in Colorado. But so, I had a little bit of a difficult beginning here at Prime, and training sucked. And, everybody thinks training sucks. Even when you have a good trainer, it doesn't really necessarily mean you're going to have a great experience. Um, Trucking it's a lifestyle change. But, you know, so 8 years ago today, I got my CDL. I trained on a manual. I have now trained, uh, I don't even know. As far as helping people get their CDLs, I know it's like upwards of 60, 70 people. As far as bringing people in the prime, I know I'm up in the hundreds. Uh, people watching this channel, I've communicated, I'm sure, with 600 people. And I've made some really good friends, and some of you are right here in this room right now already, so thanks a lot. And like Slim Shady, and there's Dane Silver. So you guys have been around here and Chasing America and Barry and Wombats and Scramble North. You guys have all been around here on my channel for a long time, and I appreciate that you guys still pop in. I appreciate that. Oh my gosh, Slim Shady's birthday's today. Well, happy birthday. Woohoo. Mischief night. I should have known. But stick around a little bit later because I'm going to get into some spooky, creepy stories. Somebody asked me if anything ever happened that was weird in my life and, spooky and scary. And every once in a while, I know Slim Shady, she loves it when I just like go off on my rants of like 3 hours and just tell funny stories and stuff. So figured that maybe I'll do that tonight. But I gotta say, even when I've made some stupid decisions, and I'll be honest with you, I made some stupid decisions recently. I have I've gotten into a little bit of a financial bind that I could have easily avoided. and I made a stupid decision. Um, I really didn't update you on guys on what happened with the mini fleet. I'm no longer on the mini fleet. Uh, Alan at Kokomo Express that I had an interview with a while back. He's a great guy. I recommend people go with him. Um, he let me run the truck like it was mine. He let me take home time when I want it. He was totally hands off. He met my fleet manager. He let me take my truck to my original company fleet manager who went to the lease side. So I thank him from that. But what I didn't tell you guys was back in May, um I was involved in a car accident uh that was kind of scary. I was going down a old country road in the middle of the night, around midnight, and a deer jumped out, and my car was a little tiny Ford Focus, and there was an oncoming vehicle. That oncoming vehicle swerved. I swerved to not hit them. I went down into a ditch and rolled the car. Yep. I didn't get a ticket or anything. I didn't even go to the hospital. It's crazy when you think about it, but all I had was a scratch across my chest from the seatbelt and a bruise on my wrist, and that was it. But that car was destroyed. I had to kick the door out from the passenger seat and kick to get out of it. So it's kind of scary. Um, you know, Somebody saw Wombat said he saw a ghost at the bridge in Twin Falls. Well, Twin Falls is a scary place to be seeing any kind of ghosts. Um, that night I thought I saw a ghost because I thought for sure I was dead. I don't know if you guys ever been on there used to be a roller coaster at Six Flags called Ultra Twister, and that's what it felt like when the car rolled over and the airbags deployed, and I kicked my way out of the door and I got up, and I had to wait a couple hours for them to roll the car back over just so I can find my phone. And so I was kind of carless for a little bit, but that all happened before I got on the mini fleet and went back on the road, and I was fine. But recently I started to feel like I need to go, see a doctor, and I did, and so it turned out that it was best for me to come back on to the training pad for a little while just to get some checkups done and, you know, physical therapy and all that good stuff. Just make sure that, I'm not going to do anything to it that, I start to kind of feel achy, like I was sleeping on it wrong. I really wasn't sure that I really did any damage or anything, but, um, yeah, damn deer, says Barry. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad that nothing happened to me too. Yeah, I'm okay. Uh, it's weird though. It was my mother's car, and if you've been around me for a while, then my mom died a couple years ago, and I was heartbroken that I killed my mother's car. And she gave me a keychain a long time ago that was supposed to be for truck drivers, and it was a little angel, and on it said, "Never drive faster than your guardian angel could fly." And it was funny because when they found the phone, that keychain was attached to the phone. It was stuck to the phone. It was weird. It was almost like my mom was protecting me, which goes back to the ooh, creepy Halloween stories we're gonna discuss later. But so yeah, so even though I was on that mini fleet for a few months, and he was really nice to me, he was good. I had a beautiful truck, and he, didn't need any kind of repairs, and I got to go to my fleet manager and everything. I came back to the training pad, and I've already tested out quite a few students. Um, I really love training, but there's changes going on at Prime. And if you've been watching some other people, you may have seen some of that stuff going on. Uh, Again, 8 years today. I've been at Prime. I got my CDL, and there are some changes that we've reduced in company drivers by so much. It still doesn't make sense to me. I still don't understand it. When I first got here, it was like 40% company drivers. Now we're down to like 6 or 7%, something like that. And they are downsizing the fleets. So people are getting fired left and right for things that, during the pandemic, Prime would have put up with because they need the drivers. And, they needed the drivers when the demand was high. Now it's almost like, well, watch yourself because you could be fired. You know, um, People are saying things like, well, I got a critical event and I had an accident and they fired me today. Whereas a year ago, they might have gotten a critical event and hit something the same day and they didn't get fired. So, um, there's some things that are going on. Yeah, okay. Dane says that they saw a video about, I think that was Captain Dave. Captain Dave and his wife didn't report an accident. And, and he's been here a couple years. He came in when my mom died. And that's the kind of thing that, happens. And freight is way down. And, companies are cutting back. Some companies are closing down. Um, I don't like some things that are going on. It seems like as a company driver, I'm kind of being squeezed, like you need to go lease, or, certain things are going on where I can't train over the road because of my cat. I could do the team training, but I can't do the CDL instruction. And I get it, but I don't, because honestly, I did the team training for like 7 years with the cat. So, uh, obviously the cat's not a problem. My training's not a problem. Um, so yeah, don't lease in this environment. It's not good. Truth is though, it really doesn't matter. People really don't look at the whole picture, and they don't look at the whole 3 years of the lease. If you go and you watch Freight Skater, I really like Freight Skater. He was doing flatbed, then he went to reefer. He's teamed all this time, and you look at his lease that he did a few years ago, and averaged 65 cents a mile before taxes, after all expenses, at the end of the 3 years of the lease. He just did another video with his most recent lease. And you would think that because profits were so high for so long, that his profit margin would be better, but it's actually not. He still wound up, um, he still wound up uh, doing 65 cents a mile because now the expenses went so high. I don't know. All of a sudden, it's telling me that YouTube's giving me an error. So let me know if you guys can still hear me. And I really don't want to go lease. So it looks like I might have to go back out on the road. Um, I considered looking for another job, but I really don't want to. I like doing what I'm doing. I love training. So we're gonna have to see what happens. But yeah, it's horrible money to be responsible for everything, right? And it's kind of funny because, like, one of the managers recently told me, well, some of them make 70 cents a mile. You won't find a company driver making 70 cents a mile. And I'm like, yeah, actually, some of our regional company drivers are making 70 cents a mile, you know. Um, so, all right. So, what about Halloween, guys? Do you guys believe in ghosts? Do you believe in spirits? Do you like the macabre type of stuff? I was watching YouTube and they were talking about past lives and I was thinking, my God, this life can sometimes be hard dealing with one life. But so I was kind of wondering, do you guys do you believe in past lives? When I was 14, I had an older sister that was already having children. She was already married and had kids. And her 2-year old scared the heck out of me. We were um we were walking down the street and there was this old abandoned house and I was trying to walk him back to my sister's house. My mom and my sister only lived like 5 houses away. And it was 6 o'clock at night, but it was, fall, winter type of scenario. So it was already getting dark. And back then in the 90s, we used to wear dresses and skirts and pantyhose and dress shoes when we went to school. And so I'm walking along the street holding this kid's hand, and he starts waving. He's 2 years old. He starts waving over to the old abandoned house. And I'm like, "What are you waving at?" And he says, "The man over there." I'm like, "What man?" And I'm looking into the wooded area and I don't see any man near this old abandoned house. And he's like, "The man right there. He's coming towards us." And I'm like, "What are you crazy? There's no man there." Well, I pick up the kid and I start walking faster because, my God, there's maybe somebody there. And whether he was there or not, I don't know. It was scaring me enough. I was 14. And I start walking faster. And then little Joey says to me, "Aunt Kiers, he's getting closer. He's coming for us." Now I start like really double timing it. I, I pick up this kid and I throw him over top of the fence, and I'm climbing the fence with a pair of dress shoes and pantyhose. I'm banging on my sister's door, and she's like screaming at me, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Trying to get in there because your kid's scaring the hell out of me." And that was the one. And he was 2. And a few years later, her other kid wound up being creepy too. Like he would see shadows is what he called it. And when he was 18 months old, this 18-month-old kid, a baby, start screaming in the middle of the night. And he's crying, "Vietnam, Vietnam, they killed me, Mom, they killed me. They shot me and left me for dead." And he would grab his throat and say he was shot in the throat. And he would sit there and tell us all about it. He was 18 years old. He was a black boy from down south. I think it was Alabama. And this was all back before the internet. So it's not like we could have tried to get a name and looked it up or anything. But uh, it was kind of creepy. It was freaky. How would a little 18-month-old kid know about Vietnam? And he would give these descriptions. He had these dreams every night for months. And then one night he got a fever and started having a seizure. And he grabbed his throat and he died in real life. He actually turned blue, stopped breathing, and the paramedics had to resuscitate him. And after that, he never had that dream again, but he still saw things. And when he got to like kindergarten, he wouldn't go over certain houses of family members and friends because he's oh, Barry loves these stories. Okay, cool, because I got a few of them. But he wouldn't go to houses of certain people because he said that there were quote unquote bad shadows. And so my sister had decided that she was going to buy a new house. So she moved around the corner and I bought her house from her. Well, the kids were staying with me one night. It was summertime. And so I had the three boys. They were 5, 7, and 9. And at the time, I was like 22, 23 years old. I was married. I owned my own house. And I said to the boys, "Hey, you want some more popcorn?" And Dominic looks at me and goes, "Yeah, but I do. But when you go in the kitchen, don't be afraid of the man in the blue suit." And I'm like, "What?" And he says, "The man in the kitchen. Don't be afraid of the man in the kitchen." And I said, "There's no man in the kitchen." He says, "Yeah, Aunt Kier, there's a man in the kitchen. He's got a blue suit. He used to come in and read to me at night when I lived here." All right, so now I'm freaked out. Okay. I'm sitting here with three kids. I'm 22 years old. I'm looking around my house. I didn't want the kids to know that I was afraid, but I was afraid. And my big 100-pound dog with 2-inch incisors was like locked up in the back part of the house. So I take a lamp from the living room and I'm sneaking around the house ready to hit somebody on the head, not wanting the kids to know that I'm freaking terrified right now. And there was a woman across the street, a woman that lived across the street, and she had lived in our neighborhood her whole life, and she was like 90 years old. And one day she brought out these newspaper clippings of all these different things that had happened in our neighborhood over the years. And there had been a flood back in the 50s, and there were different people, given in pictures that were helping others. And my nephew looked at the one picture and he says, "That's the guy." And I said, "That's what guy?" And he says, "That's the guy in the blue suit that lives in your house." And I was like, it just like chills went down my spine. I was like, "You got to be kidding me." Right? And the lady looked at me and she goes, I'll never forget, her name was Anastasia Mabel. And she said that Anastasia Mantle. And she said to me, "Nope, he's right. How would he know that? That guy did live in your house." And I was like, "Ooh." And apparently, back then they still laid people out in the houses, and he actually had a wake in my house back in the early 50s. And that really creeped me out. 'Cause I'd look around and I'd be like, "What the hell?" So when my sister decided to go, hello, how you doing? So when my sister decided to go and buy her house, come on, stop in and then go share this live chat, because yeah, it's my anniversary at Prime and now it's Halloween. It's my favorite holiday. Now I'm telling weird stories about my life, and you know, maybe somebody will care. But anyway, so when my sister first decided to go looking for houses, her 5-year-old son said to her, "Hey, um her 5-year-old son said to her, "Hey, I gotta go. I gotta look for the house. I'm not gonna let you just buy any house because I don't like the shadows in all of them." So she took him, and he kept saying, "No, I don't like this house. I don't like this house." So he finally finds a house and he says to my sister, "There's a woman who lives here, and she's dressed like the queen." And I'm like, "She's dressed like the queen." And the way he described it, it almost sounded like a Elizabethan era, or, like maybe an Edwardian or Victorian, like the long dress with the corset type. And, so it was he talked about lace and everything. And he said, "She lives here and she's going to protect us. So, yes, we can live here." But he said, "The only thing that really bothers me is I hear this click, 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 tap, tap, tap." And I said, "Okay." Now he was 5, and they still lived there for like 18 years or something. And when he was well into his late teens, he was still hearing this click, click, click. And um, so it turned out that it was actually a typewriter he was hearing. Somebody brought an old antique typewriter, and when they start typing on it, this kid stands up and says, "Oh my God, that's the sound I've been hearing my whole life living in this house." Like 15 years or something, and it was driving him nuts. And, he was too young to even know what an electric typewriter sounded like, let alone one of those old push buttons. Yeah, Cheryl, hi. Welcome on in. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm still with Prime. I never actually left Prime. I had gone to a mini fleet that runs under Prime's authority. I did that for a few months, and then I wound up going back to the training pad and working with people on getting their CDLs. I think I might wind up having to go back out on the road soon. I'm not really sure. Uh, Things are kind of slowing down with training in one way, and they really are trying to push people. They're trying to push people to train the CDL portion out on the road because they think that that one-on-one uh, really helps. Now, somebody like me, I wound up going through the CDL program, like I said, and here at Prime, and I drove 10,000 miles with my permit in 3 weeks when I was in training. But my problem wasn't the driving. I was a great driver, even with the manual that I had never driven a manual before I came here. And it wound up that, um, I couldn't back. And that's really what my struggle was. So as I've been here doing the CDL instruction, I have taken multiple students, but I always gave them one-on-one time when it came to the backing. Even some of the driving, I gave them one-on-one time, whereas then I also would take them on loads, and like one student would drive, say, 3 or 4 hours to the load, and then the next one would drive back, so we would be home the same day. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks for following. Um, but so tell me, Cheryl, do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in past lives? Tell me, because I've had some weird things happen. Uh, Something else that was really strange that happened with that kid that I was talking about. My nephew kind of had these weird past live experiences, and then I think he sort of saw ghosts, and he would sometimes know things that a little kid shouldn't know. Um, Hell yes. Okay. Well, I hope nobody sees any ghosts while they're parked out in a rest area at 2 o'clock in the morning alone. I'll tell you, some of those rest areas out west, you might get in there and you're like the only truck, or there might only be one other truck, and that's kind of creepy. I think that's kind of creepy. I'd rather be someplace where I know there's others around, but um so when I was 16, there was a neighbor of mine who had just turned 21, and his father had passed. And so he lived alone, and his uh his mother had moved away, and so he basically lived alone in the house, and his dog died. And I kind of felt bad for him because he felt like he lost everything. He lost his mother when he was younger because she just got up and left him and his father. And then the father died, and so then he winds up, the dog dies, and this is back in the 90s again with the high hair with the Aquanet hairspray that when you touched it, it just all stuck to you. And I had a ton of makeup on, and it was 100 degrees in the summertime, and the makeup was pouring down my face, and sweat and everything. And so Davy comes over crying about his dog, and he says he couldn't bury his dog. So my friend and I, in our skirts and heels, go and we put this dead dog, this 100-pound golden retriever, we put him in a wheelbarrow, and we took him around back, and we dig a kind of shallow hole. And then when we dumped him in the hole, we couldn't fit him because the hole wasn't big enough and it wasn't deep enough. And I wound up taking a, a shovel and broke the dog's legs to fit him in the hole. and we bury him and we cover him up. A few years later, about 6 or 7 years later, my sister's kid was coming back from the bus stop. The bus stop happens to be right next to this house. And him and his friends are playing, like air drums and air guitar and stuff like that. And they're banging on stuff. And I'm like, what do you got in your hands? What's up with those sticks? And he's like, what do you mean? We found these by the bus stop. And I said, did you find them by the bus stop or did you find them by the blue house next to the bus stop? He says, the blue house next to the bus stop. And I said to him, I was like, those are not sticks. Those are ribs from the dog I buried there. And then the kids like got so scared and they're like, what do you mean? And then they dropped the bones. And then the creepy nephew I was telling you about before, the one that like had past lives and saw ghosts, he turned around and looked at me and says, Aunt Kiers, Davy says he doesn't want my brothers going back there again, but you can go by his house anytime you want. Now, Davy had died long before this kid even knew who Davy was, and so that was kind of creepy. Um, Howdy, howdy. Thanks, thanks for stopping in. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been on, and you know, um, got a different truck, and I was doing all kinds of things. I rolled my cars, and now I got to go thinking about getting a new car, but the market is crazy. Has anybody bothered to go car shopping recently? Um, the way things are right now, the used cars are only a couple $1,000s cheaper than the brand new cars. And unless you're paying cash, forget it because the way the percentage interest rates are right now, you're talking, you know, the used car percentage rate bumps your payment up to be the same as what it would be if you got the lower interest rate on the new car. And it's amazing to me that some of these people are waiting like 6 months to a year for certain Toyotas, certain Hondas, certain sports cars. It's like, wow, and I was looking and like the average car payment right now in the US is $700 a month. $700 a month for a car. I mean, I'm paying $800 a month for my rent. It just seems crazy. Cheryl says my mom passed away in July. I'm so sorry. Her cousin, who I absolutely loved, visited me twice in my dreams to tell me that my mom is safe and out of pain. Oh, that's good. Yeah, tell her to bring your mom. That's exactly. Uh, yeah. Um, that's really tough. I feel for you with your mom passing away. I'm sorry about that. Unfortunately, it's part of life that we all have to deal with and really sucks, you know. Uh I don't really think my mom really leaves me too much though. Every once in a while when I do something stupid, I can feel her or hear her like wanting to smack me in the back of the head. Like, what the hell are you doing? But and then if you've been around here for a while, you know my mother was really feisty too. Passed on the 4th of July. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. What sucks about people passing the other holidays too is it just makes the holidays suck. It really does. Um, my father passed in November, kind of close to Thanksgiving. My sister's birthday was on Thanksgiving. My grandfather died on Christmas Day. And so it's kind of like, that whole, and my sister died on New Year's Day. So it's kind of like the whole, holiday season can sometimes become uh really really kind of a downer, and you have to kind of just push through things. You have to move on. You have to realize, hey, you know, life goes on and it is what we make of it. So, and I hear people all the time talking about things like, trauma and things that have happened to them, and what I've learned in life is bad things happen to everybody. And despite what any of us want to believe, nobody's trauma is really trumps another's. Like, all of us go through trauma and traumatic events, and people sometimes want to one up each other, and it's how you deal with it that makes a difference and really shows your character and shows who you are. There are some people that want to play the victim all the time, and you know and unfortunately, some people don't understand or never learn how to cope with things, and they get themselves into trouble. So I really hope that people that wind up find themselves in bad situations or traumatic situations and desperate situations, that they're able to find their way to get some help and to cope. But I'm going to go back to my little ghost story night for a second, because now that we got on the subject of death, we'll go talk about my grandmother, because she's uh, that's a whole nother story. My mother was a feisty broad, but so was her mother. And my grandmother is 83 years old, and she used to walk to church every day, walk the mass, good Catholic, Irish Catholic woman. Right? And she'd walk city blocks. And she wound up getting sick, and she called her doctor and she said, "Hey, I'm coughing and hacking and I'm having problems. So I need you to, thanks, Slim. I'll keep going." So the doctor turns around and does what this was a doctor that the old time doctor that used to do house calls. He actually only lived 2 doors away from my grandmother in South Philadelphia. So he writes her a prescription for antibiotics. She takes them for 10 days. She takes all the pills. She doesn't get better. She calls him up and says, "Hey, what's your problem?" And he turns around and says, "Well, what do you want me to do? The pills didn't work. If you're really that bad, go to the hospital." So my grandmother walked herself 16 blocks to the hospital, walked into the hospital, and they said to her, "You should be in excruciating pain." And she says, "Well, I had 10 kids natural childbirth. There's no greater pain than that." And they said, "Yeah, but you shouldn't even be able to walk." And she says, "Well, I'm old. I'm supposed to be in pain. I'm 83." And they said, "Well, no, you have cancer and it's spread to your lungs, colon, and spleen. You have 3 weeks left to live." And her response was, "Well, 3 weeks, that's St. Patty's Day. I can't die on St. Patty's Day. I'm Irish." Seriously, this is what this woman said. So they put her on morphine, and she didn't say anything, not a damn word, for 3 weeks. And then on the the day after St. Patty's Day, so March 18th, I swear this is a true story. Right? She sits up and she starts looking in the sky, and she starts talking to her husband who died 20 years before her, and says, "Hey, what are you doing here? What do you mean we're going on a date?" And she's having this one-sided conversation, and we don't see anybody there. No light, no spirit, no nothing. And uh and then she says, "Well, what are you doing in that ugly suit? Where'd you get that tie? We're going on a date. I don't want to be seen with you in that ugly suit." And and then she says, "Oh, thank you for the flowers. They're beautiful." And after sitting there for a little bit and it looked like she was listening. She just said, "Okay, I'm ready." And she fell over and she died. I mean, I wouldn't have believed it if I wasn't there to see it. And that's just crazy to me. And Cheryl says her grandmother did the same thing. Wow. You know, those are creepy things. And like, even my mother, Cheryl, I don't know if you were listening to me back in a couple years ago when my mom passed, but the last time I saw my mother was Mother's Day of 2021. And I told her, "Oh, you can't live alone anymore. I'm going to go move to Missouri and get an in-house job at Prime. And I want you to come live with me. And, you know, or we're going to put you in a home." And she looked at me and she goes, "I'm not going in any home. Uh-uh. Uh-uh. I'm not going to home. You see that bed in my bedroom? I'm gonna die right there in that bed. I'm never going anywhere. And I'm gonna die in that bed. And if the Grim Reaper tries to move me, well, guess what? I'll kick him out just like I'm gonna kick you out if you try taking me anywhere." And she goes, "I'll die when I'm ready to die." And, she did a few months later, but she died in her bed and she died with her coffee and her cell phone and her, Roku remote. And, it was the way she needed to go. 10 count. That's one of my babies right there. I tried calling him earlier. Uh, those of you who know him, he's a really good guy to know. He's also an instructor here at Prime. He's been a long-time subscriber, and we're good friends. So, 10 count, I was just saying that I got my license 8 years ago today. Yep, it's been a crazy ride. I've had quite a few trucks. I had one truck, I swear, wanted to kill me. I look young. Well, you look young. What are you here for, me? I've been waiting to see you again. We assumed she was talking to my grandpa. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we assumed my grandmother was talking to her grandpa too. 10 count, we were talking about ghost stories and past lives and things like that. And um earlier I was talking about my nephew that he saw some ghosts, and he talked about past lives, and he really believed that he was having these nightmares that he was in Vietnam and that he was shot in the throat. um and I wound up looking for some kind of meditation video on YouTube the other night. And there's this one channel that does all different kinds of meditations for, like, one is for, like, to quit smoking, and one is to lose weight, and one is for better sleep. And the same guy does all these different videos, and a few of them, the most popular ones, was the past lives video. And I was like, when people talk about, yeah, no automatic restrictions 8 years ago. Nope. What's my favorite truck all these years later? Huh. Huh. My favorite truck was my 2020 International, but it was an automatic. Um, but it was in the shop all the time, but I think that was the most comfortable. It had the best ride, but it was always in the shop. It sucked that way. Um, I mean, if I'm going to talk about what truck was the best for rolling, uh, I'd probably say the 2015s or the 2016s I felt more comfortable in as far as a Cascadia. Oh, Slim Shady, 4-year CDL anniversary in a month. Way to go, way to go. What are you doing now? You still driving out west all the time? So 10 count, you see any ghosts? Because you know what? I don't know if you guys know this. I was looking into this. The old Route 666 is actually US 491. Do you guys know where that is? When you're teaming and you're trying to get around Wyoming, that's a route that you take to get back up to you know, to I-15. It comes off of I-40 near Gallup, New Mexico, and then you go up north that way. And that's supposed to be the most haunted route in America. Did you know that? Yeah. Another haunted route is back in New Jersey now. 10 count and I actually grew up in towns across from each other. And we didn't know each other till we came to Prime, but when we go back home and visit, we tease each other and we'll send pictures of like our favorite pizza place and laugh at each other and that kind of thing. So he will know this. New Jersey Route 55 is also supposed to be one of the most haunted routes in America. And that one was built on an Indian burial ground, a Native American burial ground. And the tribe in that area was fighting the state and decided that they were going to curse the highway. And it took years and years to build that road. And like I remember like growing up as a kid, we would go over top of the overpasses and the road was there. It was laid down and nobody was allowed to drive on it. And I know that every time somebody got killed, especially if it was like a teenager, there was a I know there was a couple that was going to prom and they got a flat tire and the boy got out and was changing the tire and the girl got out to help him and they both got killed by a tractor trailer going by, which just goes to show that that tractor trailer should have been in the left freaking lane given space. And I'm sure that you know, I'm sure that he's um in prison or at least went to prison. Now that I just thought of it, I'm gonna have to go back and look. 10 count says I listen to some scary podcasts late at night. You scare yourself. Hands on the arms and neck will stand up. You know what? I'm going to tell you something. I don't know how many of you realize that I've written books, published author, and I have not published anything since I got into trucking. However, the last book I wrote, it's called Zodiac Lives. It's a fictional account of the Zodiac killer in San Francisco and coincidentally, it's a past life thing. It's a past life thing where a little girl is in a car accident. The nephew that I was talking about earlier that would have these dreams that he was, killed in Vietnam. Uh, I sort of was inspired by him. So the little girl is having these nightmares about somebody trying to kill her, and she's naming all these things in San Francisco, and she's like 3 years old, so she shouldn't know anything about that. And her dreams wind up leading the police to evidence from the Zodiac killings back in the 70s. And the Zodiac killer in real life was never found. So, um, in the book, he gets scared that somebody knows who he is and he starts killing again to try to find out who knows who he is and do they know his identity. And when I wrote this book, I was writing it at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was a storm outside. It was a summer storm, and I had the sliding glass doors open, and the wind was blowing, and the lights were down, and I had candles on, and I actually scared myself while writing my own murder scene. It was hysterical, and I had to get up and close the doors and turn all the lights on, and after the book got published, this lady from Australia, she had written to me she emailed me and she says, "I love the book, but I got to tell you, I have 3 kids and my husband would go away and travel on the weekends." And she says, "I actually told him he wasn't allowed to go away for business anymore." She says, I gotta get over that because I'm sleeping with all the lights on." So that's kind of cool that you can have an effect on somebody like that. Um, you know, but my books are all unpredictable. I hate predictable stuff. It's just not who I am. And I'm really proud of that book. If you like thrillers, that's the kind of book you should go check out. Zodiac Lives, and it's written under Rhoda Detour. Uh, Sounds like Road has a detour on Amazon. But I one of my other stories was also a compilation of all the different quote unquote ghosts that my nephew had talked about over the years. So he used to talk about this Revolutionary War soldier that he would see walking up and down our neighborhood, and then the man in the blue suit that had lived in my house. And so I kind of wrote this story that kind of like drifted from time period to time period, and it was in that neighborhood. But one of the stories, the Revolutionary War soldier, I sort of made that into a romance novel, like a romance story. So the girl's father had gone off to fight in the war, and they didn't have communication, anywhere near like what we did. So people often go off to war, and you wouldn't hear from them for 2, 3, 4 years. So she wound up meeting this daughter meets this lieutenant, and they get married, and it's Christmas night, and they're making love, and it's Christmas, and she's so happy, and blah blah blah. And all of a sudden a bayonet comes like right through her husband's chest while he's on top of her, and there's blood squirting all over, and she's screaming, and it's her father came home not realizing that his daughter had gotten married and thought the daughter was being attacked, so he killed the husband. I had a friend that was really into romance, and she was so upset when she read that. She like threw the book up against the wall, and she's like, "I'm never reading any of your stuff again." I'm like, "Wow, sorry." So, what kind of books do you guys like to read? Do you like the scary stuff? Do you like the thrillers? Do you like the romance? Or are you more like a nonfiction history thing? Because I was always into true crime and serial killers and stuff like that. And it's kind of funny because I had a boyfriend who was fairly new to us dating, and he came and he saw like my library collection, and he actually said to me, I really liked you and I knew you were smart, but after seeing your books, I really don't think that I can date you anymore. Yeah. But and that was okay. Eh, Little did he know that one of my books was like how to properly dispose of a body, and another one was, all about like forensics. And so I got rid of him without anybody ever finding it. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Thrillers, yeah. Who's your favorite author? And do you guys like audiobooks? Like, would you sit here and listen to audiobooks while you're driving? S- Sometimes I do. Hello, David. Welcome. Thanks for stopping in. Tell me, David, what kind of do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in past lives? Have any of you ever had a past life experience? And if you did, who do you think you were? Because something that I find interesting is people who claim that they had past life experiences. Like, did you ever notice that they never just say, "Oh, I was just like a soldier in the Crusades," or, you know, "I was a scrubbery maid on a ship." It'll be like, "Oh, I was a scrubbery maid on the Titanic," or "I was Cleopatra." You know, You listen to audiobooks a lot. So who's your favorite author? Or who would you want to be if you did have a past life, who do you wish you could have been? Because I was watching this chick the other day on one of these YouTube channels about past lives. And when they put her under, she was naming her siblings and her father. It turned out that her family was a part of a circus. And so she was naming these different places they were at and named their names. And she even said the year, it was like 1936. And then later, she was telling the therapist while she was hypnotized that she was a gold digger and she would sleep around and marry men for money. Historical fiction. Hmm. So, she would marry men for money and she was a gold digger. And so the therapist asked her, "What did you learn from this life?" And she says, "I learned to live before I died, live every day, appreciate the life you have right now." And she was sitting and he says, "How did you die?" And she was sitting in front of a mirror at a vanity, putting makeup on, and somebody walked up behind her and sliced her throat. And he says, "What did you think? What was your last thought?" And she says, "My last thought was, what a shame I didn't get him first." and and she was like, "I was mad. I was angry, you know." And I thought that was like really interesting because that kind of seemed real to me. That would be something that I would think of. James Patterson, Stephen King, Dean Koontz, David Baldacci. Okay, now, all right, you just named like everybody that I read. Stephen King, I lost interest in because he would just go like he's still the only author that gets paid by the word that he writes. So he he writes too much about description, and I just don't care about that anymore. To me, it feels like they're saying that I'm stupid. Um, like I have an imagination, so I don't need him to spend 50 pages describing the curtains and the room and stuff. James Patterson, I really like James Patterson, and I will tell you that two of my books were on the best-selling list right next to James Patterson, and I was like, yes, I have made it. Dean Koontz, a couple of his books, I liked them, but like he would write um like one story in chapter one and then a whole different family, let's say in chapter two, and then a different family in chapter three. So you wouldn't find out how all these people were like related or combined, or how they were going to interact until you got further down, like almost three-quarters of the way into the book. So if there was somebody you really liked, I would have to like go jump every three or four chapters just to follow their story because I didn't care about the other people. No. David Baldacci, I read a good book from him and I don't even remember what it was, but I know I had a couple that were really good. What do I know about twin flames? I don't know anything about twin flames, Wombat. Why don't you educate us? What is twin flames? Um, but I know a lot of these truckers talk about they see the black dog. I ain't never seen no black dog, but I will tell you that 491, that's the one it goes like all through Ute Mountain and up to Moab, to 191 to Moab. That's a scary place. I remember I was on the phone talking to my mom, and I was like, you know what? This is a place where you could be driving on the lane and somebody could be getting killed in the shoulder and burying the other person on the highway, right next to the highway. You wouldn't even see it. It was so freaking dark there. Yeah, it was so freaking dark there. And but how about the Jersey Devil? 10 Count and I are from South Jersey, so I'm sure he grew up with the Jersey Devil stories. Like, I'm kind of shocked that people out here don't seem to know that story very well, even though where we come from, even the hockey team, that's the mascot is the Devils. They're not the Devils because of just random thing. They're the Jersey Devils because there was folklore about the Jersey Devil. And it was supposed to be a woman named Leeds who had like 13 kids, and she was pregnant again, and with the 13th kid, and apparently it was kicking and screaming, and she was upset, and she cursed the baby saying, I hope you die, or I hope you whatever. And when she gave birth to the baby, it wound up being a devil-like creature with horns and hoofs like a horse, and stood on hind legs and had a tail, and it could fly, and it flew away. And so when I was a kid, the adults used to tell us that we had to be good or the Jersey Devil would come for us. And every once in a while, like, the parents would take these wood blocks, and they'd like clap them down on tables and stuff, and they'd be like, "You hear it? You hear it? It's the Jersey Devil looking for the kids." That actually leads me to another scary story from my childhood where I lived on a creek. Now, I lived on a creek, and across the street was woods. And I don't know, how many of you know that Friday the 13th was actually filmed in New Jersey? Did you know that? 10 Count says the Pine Barrens always seem scary to him. Yes, the Pine Barrens was. It was right in front of the Six Flags exit. Kept walking from right side shoulder into the lanes, and I just missed him, whatever it was. He looked really old. Slim, are you talking about in Jersey? You talk about the Jersey Devil near the Six Flags exit? That's off the Jersey Turnpike. That's exit 7A. Huh. Yeah, okay. So, I was going to talk about something else and I just completely forgot. Slim got me distracted. Can anybody help me out there? Just squirrel. Go read up a bit. Yeah, yeah, Jersey Devil was something that, oh, I know, the Captain the Creek story. So, yeah, I grew up in a neighborhood that, uh, you know, it looked like Friday the 13th in my neighborhood, basically. We were sort of out in the woods. We were on a dead end street. The neighbors and the houses were kind of close together, but there was a creek out back. And I had a crazy mother who didn't really see the need to shelter us from horror films or anything like that. So a lot of times we were terrified of where we lived. But every Halloween night, once I owned my house, I would do this haunted walkthrough through my house. I get my husband and his relatives and the older teenage kids in the neighborhood to come do this haunted walkthrough, and we got all dressed up and we scare everybody, and it was pretty cool. One year I
I printed out these flyers before the kids got home from school, and I stapled them to the telephone poles saying that there was a weed whacker killer escaped from Ancora Mental Hospital. That Ancora was not that far from where we lived. It was a real mental hospital that was kind of well known. And so I put, wanted, you know, guy escaped from mental hospital and killed 5 people with a weed whacker, armed and dangerous, call, you know, whatever phone number. I put these on all the telephone poles all over the neighborhood. It was great. Right. And so one of the older teenage kids, he was dressed up and he was hanging behind my garage. And so as the people came through my house and went out my back door up my driveway, he would go chasing them up the driveway with the weed whacker. It was great. Except I came out and I told him that there was a woman who was pregnant in the neighborhood and she was very, very pregnant. And I came out and told him, do not jump out at Julia because she's pregnant. It's not good. Well, what does this 16-year-old kid do? He chases her up the driveway. And she wound up giving birth that night. And like 12 years later, 13 years later, her kid comes back to me and says, "Thank you for scaring my mother because you gave me the best birthday ever. Now I was born on Halloween. It's amazing. It's awesome." But yeah, so the captain of the creek story. So after I would scare all the kids in the neighborhood, I would take them all back to my house, and I had this huge family room where I could open up the sliding glass doors, and I had this huge television, and we would watch horror films and eat candy all night and order pizza and stuff, and it was kind of cool because it was a way for the 12-year-old cool kids that were like 12 and 13 and stuff. They still got to enjoy Halloween and didn't feel like little baby kids, and I never had any kids, so it was kind of fun. But so the captain of the creek, uh I would tell them this story about this sea captain from 100 years ago, that he would come up the creek and he would enslave bad kids. And every Halloween night, he would come looking for any of the kids that didn't listen to their parents. And he would take these kids back onto the ship. And one night, the kids rebelled and they wound up like overthrowing him, and the whole ship like capsized, and they killed the captain, and they all died. But it would be really cool because sometimes, because you know how like the temperatures change in this time of year. So sometimes on Halloween night, we would get this fog that would roll in, and it would come across the water, and it would come up into our yards. And I would tell the kids that that was the captain of the creek looking for more kids. And you better be good and you better listen, or the captain's going to get you. And all the kids go, and it's kind of funny. So as the kids from the neighborhood grew up and they start having kids, they start bringing their kids to my house for me to scare their own kids with the captain of the creek. It was kind of funny. Oh, okay. Slim saying I only read this second half of the story. I'm sorry. Saw an apparition while driving at night on 44 westbound outside of St. Louis. Well, I don't want to hear that because I live off of 44 now. And yes, it's a few hours away from me up in St. Louis, but still, it's a little too close. Hmm. But I don't know if I believe in ghosts. I don't know. what I believe in. Some of these people, did you ever see that like they like burn sage in the corners of their houses and stuff, trying to chase the ghosts away? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I go that far, but they do. I mean, the law of energy says what? Energy can be changed. It can't be destroyed, right? So, what are we? We're using energy constantly. Our brain waves are energy. If they can if they can chart and scan and everything our brain waves, then who's to say that some of our energy doesn't somehow stay behind? I don't know. Like in 2011, there was a really bad Hurricane Irene that destroyed my house. And my brother doesn't believe in any kind of apparitions, or he's not religious at all. He doesn't believe in spirits or afterlife or anything like that. Sometimes I think that if there was an afterlife, my mother would have given me the lottery number somehow. Yeah, I think she would have done that. So maybe she can't tell the future. I don't know. I would think that she would have at least gotten a lottery ticket for me, like stolen it. Mom, go find the winning lottery ticket, steal it from the person that bought it, and drop it off in my apartment. That's what I need. That's what I need. But when the hurricane hit my house, we lost everything. Everything that was on the ground level was just a flood ripped through the house, like 4 feet high through the house. So that was all destroyed. And anything that was in the attic was destroyed when the roof got ripped off. So pretty much lost everything. And after we cleaned everything out of the house, I asked my brother, I was like, how the heck did you not get electrocuted? You know, with all appliances and everything in the house, and our circuit breakers never tripped. And I would have thought he got electrocuted somehow. And he said, I don't know. And as he said that, all of a sudden, a picture of my sister just came floating through the air. My dead sister came floating through the air and landed on our kitchen counter. And it's the first time I ever think I saw my brother like scared. He's like 6'2" and 225 pounds of solid muscle. And it's the first time I ever saw him scared. Wombat says when we were born, we all have identical twins. Mirror of ourselves all my life. I could feel this person anyhow. I dated a girl with red hair because it felt familiar. Huh. She was a horrible person. Years later, I met my twin on my birthday. Second I met her, I knew it was my entire life. She looked very much like the girl I dated. Hmm. Well, I'm happy that you found somebody you were supposed to be with. That's really cool. I don't know if I, the only person I can really say that I felt like, uh, quote unquote, twin, like when they talk about soulmates, they say, yeah, you were split and you're going back to that person. But people talk about doppelgangers where, you know, it looks like you. That person looks like you. It's not necessarily somebody of the opposite sex, they're the same sex. But when I was 19, I met this guy and he was pacing back and forth and he was really scary. I was working at a drugstore and I grabbed a hammer from underneath the counter because I really thought he was going to come attack me. I really did. And he was pacing back and forth and I was like, "Can I help you?" And he pulled out his wallet and he says, "You look so much like my daughter. She just died in a car crash last week." And when he showed me the picture, it did look like me. It looked like me a lot. And that was kind of scary. I don't know if I've ever been um scared though. Have any of you been scared? Have you ever felt like an evil presence around or anything like that? I mean, we did have anybody play with Ouija boards? Ooh, that's scary for Halloween. Uh, when I was probably like 13 or 14 or something, we were playing with a Ouija board at somebody's slumber party, and this kid Jason, he wound up his grandfather had just died, and what sucked was none of us knew it. Like, he came to the party because he wanted to get away from stuff. He didn't even tell any of us. Um, it was the summertime, and um, it's not like it was something that spread around school or anything. And so he came to the party, and his grandfather had died the week before. And we start playing with the Ouija board, and supposedly, the little placard thing spelled out the nickname that he had for this boy Jason, for his grandson. And Jason picked up the board and threw it across the room, and the little placard thing, it stuck to the board until Jason left the room. And as soon as he left the room, the thing slid off. Now, Jason claims that, he did that because somebody spelled out his nickname that his grandfather called him, but I don't know if any of us even knew that nickname. And I know none of us even knew that his grandfather died. So, you know. Hey Mark, how you doing? Congratulations on 8 years. Yep, I'm still here. Slim says she was scared when she was stalked for robbery at a test area. It was creepy. I didn't care about hours of service. Yeah, I guess not. He wanted to, David says he wanted to try a Ouija, but his wife said she would break it over his head. Yeah, smart wife. Wombats. I went down the walkway and there was some girl, her mid-teens, just sitting with her legs over the retaining wall. It's a 500-foot drop over that wall. 10 Count says one of his PSD permit students, so a CDL student here at Prime, uh, you know, he took out on the road for 2 weeks, said that she was a witch. Well, was she a witch? A rest area. Duh. Oh my gosh. I'm not thinking. But was she a witch or was she like a Wiccan? Because people call them witches, but the Wiccans I know aren't witchy, like evil witchy. And let's face it, people call me a witch all the time. Why was this little girl all the way down where nobody else was? It was pitch black almost, zero signs of life on that side of the bridge. I had a bad feeling about that encounter, so I was watching the area. Mark, you're as light as a feather. Sweetie, I haven't been as light as a feather since I was in my mommy's womb. And since I was born with these big feet, I don't think I was light even then. It says I called the cops thinking that she jumped. The cops drove down to where I said she was. Half a mile, the cops would have seen her walk back across the bridge. That's some crazy stuff. Well, you know what? Now, I don't know if this was a ghost. This might sound weird because it wasn't a person, it was my dog. Um, if you've been hanging around for a while, you might know that I had a Dalmatian named Rainy back, you know, eons ago. She died in 2004, but she was practically my kid, and to this day, she's still my favorite animal. I mean, that sounds mean because I have my cat sitting on my lap right now, but it is what it is. And about a year after she died, I had had some surgery and I was on some medication. And I was in bed trying to heal, and my brother was in the house with me. And I swear, I swear I felt her jump up into my bed. And my dog never jumped in my bed. She wasn't allowed in my bed. She knew it. And I I kept hearing her whine and cry that she wanted to go out. And I wouldn't let her out, and then she jumped up in the bed, and I pushed her out of my bed, and I went to my brother and I was like, "Al, could you please keep this dog quiet? I need to sleep. I really need to recover." And my brother looked at me and said, "The dog." I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "You mean our dead dog?" And I was like, "Wait a minute. Yeah, she died a year ago." And I start like looking around the house. I'm like, "That's so weird," because I didn't see her. I felt her. I actually felt the dog jump in bed with me, and I pushed her down. So our minds can play a lot of tricks on us. Medications can play a lot of tricks on us. Maybe she was there. I don't know. But after she had died, I joined the Dalmatian Rescue and I was fostering Dalmatians. And the first two that I had two Dalmatians at the same time. And I was running around the yard with them. Now, the corner of my eye, I saw a third Dalmatian. And then I, like, flung my head around real fast and realized there wasn't one there. And every once in a while, I like to think, yeah, that was my Rainy trying to stick around for a little while. Because that dog, she would have taken a bullet for me. She was awesome. Wombat says that the cop told him that people jump from that bridge all the time. I believe she was a spirit or something. Nothing made sense why she was there. No, we chanted and picked her up with just our fingertips. WWLTD, hello, hiya, how you doing? It's Halloween and we're talking about ghosts and spirits and past lives and creepy shit and anything you want to talk about. 8 years at Prime. Maybe I should be screaming. People would say that I'm crazy just for staying in a trucking company for longer than a year or two. Because as you see, the majority of these YouTubers, they jump into a company and then they leave, and nobody's ever happy. Why would she sit with her legs over the wall? What if a cougar came walking down there and cornered her? Or mountain lion? I thought a mountain lion and a cougar were the same thing. Hmm. What if it mauled her to death? Wow. I don't know. Where were her parents? I don't know. I saw this creepy show the other night about people that were haunted, and these people bought this old farmhouse. It was a few hundred years old, and they were all happy about it and everything. And it was like, oh, okay, we're gonna move in and we're gonna renovate, and before you know it, they start having some freaky stuff happen. And as a lesbian couple, that the one was biracial, and they had a young son, and the son said to the mothers, "Hey, this is going to be my bedroom." And they were like, "It's not big enough to be a bedroom." It was like more like a walk-in closet type of thing, or like a small office. It really wasn't big enough for a bedroom. And he was like, "No, this is my bedroom." and he start talking to this little girl. And then one of the mothers starts seeing this old man in a hat walking around. And she got this creepy feeling that he didn't want her there. And it turned out that the house was owned by a slave owner, and he would have his way with the women. And when they gave birth to his children, he would take the kids down to the pond and drown them. And apparently, the town people didn't know that. So there were lots of places, even the school was named after this man that was very prominent in that town. And he was well respected, but the people didn't really know this side. So the parents that had bought this house, they wound up going and researching all this, and they brought in mediums and everything, and it turned out that the slaves and the children that he killed were sort of like haunting the place, saying that they wanted people to know who they were, and they couldn't rest without getting some kind of closure. But yet the guy was still there, and he was attacking them and torturing the living people because he didn't want his name to be disrespected. He didn't want his name to be smeared. So he was trying to get them to leave the house and be quiet about things. And I was like, that's really weird. Wolfman says a cougar and a mountain lion are the same. Thank you, Wolfman, and good evening to you as well. So, Wolfman, I'm going to assume your favorite scary creature would be a wolf. Ow, ow, ow. Yeah, I'm getting really goofy tonight. I swear tomorrow they're going to drug test me after anybody hears this. I got a Cinderella costume for tomorrow. I even got my clear slippers. I do some weird things. I get dressed up in for Halloween and um St. Patty's Day, I was dressed as a leprechaun, and Valentine's Day, I got dressed as the Queen of Hearts, and I went and gave candy out, and I know it's silly and weird, and it's something I did even when I worked at the post office, but life is short, and it's a nice way to put smiles on people's faces, especially if I can remember what their favorite candies are and things like that. It makes people feel special. But Google the Perrin Bridge and view the side I was on. Hmm. Google Map it. Oh, because that's kind of interesting. I saw one of those YouTube videos where they said that there's a bridge they call the Suicide Bridge, and they actually cut it off so people can't get there anymore. Like it's all encased in a cage type of thing. Yeah. But did you guys watch horror films when you were kids? My mother, like I said before, she really just didn't really protect us from that kind of stuff. She just told us, yeah, you guys are smart enough to know that that stuff's not real. And I'm like, yeah, okay, but that doesn't mean that you take, a 3 and 4 year old kid and a couple teenagers down the Jersey Shore, and when it starts raining, you decide to take them into the theater and see Jaws. Yes, I watched Jaws 2 when I was about 4 years old on the Jersey boardwalk. Yes. And then my mother wondered why we didn't want to go swimming the rest of the week. And she was yelling at us, do you know how much I had to pay for this hotel room? Yes. Well, then maybe you shouldn't have taken a bunch of kids to go see a scary movie. It's like she took us to see The Thing, too. Anybody see The Thing, 1983? John Carpenter's The Thing with uh Kurt Russell? That was a crazy, scary one. But I had one of my nephews, he loves scary horror films, and so when he was a kid, I used to buy all the Universal monsters videos. And, uh, you know, that was really cool. Love horror films. Okay, so what's your favorite horror film? Because I love horror films. 60 cases of chocolate overage. He gave them away to a Baptist student ministry. That's cool. That's cool. I certainly don't need any candy. Uh, that was one thing that when it happened was I lost all that weight and then I went out on the road and I gained some of it back and I'm back to losing again. Yay me. But no favorite. I watched them all. Well, I don't know. I like The Omen. I watched that the other night. I did watch quite a few of the Halloweens the other night just because what the heck is Halloween without Halloween, right? Psycho. Ooh. Do you know what Psycho was, what actually was part of the inspiration for Psycho? Hmm? I want to see if anybody knows this. There was a real person that inspired Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah. And by the way, Jaws was actually inspired uh by a real shark attack in 1916, I think it was. Um, I'm sure 10 Count might know that. Jersey Shore attack, 5 people were killed. One kid lost his leg. There was a 24-year-old that jumped in to the water to fight the shark to try to save these kids, and he died. Yeah, keep that chocolate, exactly. See, I'm a chocoholic. Yeah. One of my favorites too is American Werewolf in London. Um, but so Psycho. The movie Psycho was actually inspired by Ed Gein. Ed Gein was a serial killer from Wisconsin, of all places, like total farmland area. And people thought he was a little odd, but they trusted him enough. They thought he was harmless, odd but harmless. And so he even babysat some of their kids and stuff. He killed some of his neighbors. Um, he lived with his mother. His mother died. He mummified her body and he killed some of the neighbors and then made things out of their skin. And so that's where he also inspired Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Where he would
uh,
make like stockings out of their skin and lampshades and his mother's room he kept like exactly the way it was for years and years, and nobody realized how crazy he was. David says my wife passed away almost 2 years ago, 7 months before she passed. We bought a Kenworth. I swear she's on that truck with me. Sometimes things are not where I left them. I'm sorry to hear that, David. We were talking earlier. Cheryl lost her mother. I lost my mother a couple years ago. Yes. Ed Gein also robbed graves. That's true. And yeah, but he killed a few women in that neighborhood. But David, you see, now check this out. I understand what David's probably feeling like, he's crazy, but um guess what? I had that same experience after my sister died. I had a little necklace charm with her ashes in it, and it was very, very special to me. I wore it every day and I would take it off and put it in my jewelry box, and I don't really wear jewelry, so it was special. And one day it disappeared.
and it just wasn't in the jewelry box. And I was like, I didn't understand. And for those of you who know me, I can be a little bougie, and I had a cleaning lady back then, and I told the lady that I would give her $500 if she could find my necklace because it was that important to me. And she looked and looked and she never found it. And like about a year later, I was going through some old photo albums. I hadn't looked for those photo albums since my sister had died. I used some of the pictures in her funeral. And when I opened up the book, inside the pages that were specifically dedicated to my sister was this necklace. And I was like, that is so creepy. And, you know, it was creepy, creepy. Mark says, check out Wisconsin Death Trip. Hmm. David says I just yell at her and tell her to knock it off. One time I went into after my sister died, I went into Staples. I have one of those printers that you need it to get colored and black ink cartridge or it wouldn't work. So I go in and I buy one of each. I get out the store and guess what happens? I I get out the store and I get home, and when I look in the bag, I only had the I only had the black. I had two black. I go back to the store and I'm like, okay, I somehow I got two black, but if you look on my receipt, I paid for a colored, and the color ink cartridges always cost more back then. So they go and get me a color and they exchange it, put it in the bag. I go home and there's still two blacks. And I'm like, they're going to think I'm absolutely crazy. I go back to Office Depot again. They pulled it up on the video. They put one color and one black in my bag. And the manager chased me away and thought that I was doing something crazy. They thought I was doing something shady. I swear I wasn't. I didn't need to steal an ink cartridge. It was just, I know that was part of my sister trying to drive me crazy. And one final thing that happened with her too was I was the one that dealt with her funeral and probate and signing her car over and things like that. So I had a certain number of death certificates, and I gave one to the county for the probate office, and I had one for um, the voter registration, and one for the DMV, and I had one in my file at home. Well, one day I go to my mailbox and I open up this envelope, and there's the death certificate inside the envelope, and it had a note on it that said, found it in photocopier at such and such post office. And the post office was like an hour away from my house, and it was a rinky dink little post office that I don't know, it probably only had 50 or 60 people living in the whole town. So there was no reason for anybody that I knew to be there with this. And, you know, this might sound crazy too, but when I went to go file for my taxes after she died the next year, um, the the IRS said I was dead. I was listed on her death certificate as the witness that was signing off on her death certificate, and that's how they did it in Jersey. They put the deceased and then like next of kin. So somehow the IRS said I was dead. Social Security and the post office that I worked with before said that I was alive. So I was a federal employee being told by a federal agency that was still taking taxes out of my pay that I was dead. And I was like, well, you know what? Um, you know, then I shouldn't have to pay taxes if I'm dead. Guess what? It took me like 4 years to prove that I was alive. Go figure. You would think that my mouth would be big enough for that, right? They would just know. 10 count said it would be creepier if my sister was wearing the necklace in the photo. Well, I did find the necklace though. Yeah, do I think she took it? I do think she took it. I think she was saying, "Hey, I'm still here." And then I said, "Well, I guess you're trying to tell me you don't want me to put you in the drawer." So I found this little place to hang the necklace and I put it like so she was on a shelf looking out the window, and I guess she was okay with that because she liked that. But she was a biker, and I have her ashes here now. Her After my mom died, I took my sister's urn, so I have her here. And she doesn't seem to bother me now, although I did take some of her ashes and go drop it off at Sturgis because she was a biker and I figured she'd like that. So, uh, yeah, I'm gonna file exemption on my taxes. IRS says I'm dead, you know. But my sister actually, she was actually a weird story too, and I don't know if Slim might have heard this before. Maybe, I don't know, but um, you know, there were two times before I was told she was dead. When I was 16, the cops came and knocked on my front door asking for, next of kin. And, I was 16 in the state of New Jersey. That was legal age to go and identify a body. So back then we didn't have cell phones, and most of my family was either at work or out Christmas shopping. So I couldn't find anybody. And
I couldn't find anybody, so the cop takes me to the morgue. And he tells me, he's like, okay, you have to prepare yourself because she was in a car accident. So he pulls the sheet back, and I look, and I said, no, that's not her. And the cop and the coroner are trying to tell me that that's my sister. And I'm like, look, it looks like her. She's about the same size. She's got the same hair color. But that's not my sister. And they're like, you're just in denial. You're just in denial. I'm like, no, that's not my sister. So I call up my sister's house and I get her husband. Now, her husband was a moron. To this day, I can't stand him. Okay. And, I still can't. So I don't even have anything to do with him. He's a moron. So I called him up and I said, "Where's Rhonda?" And he says, "I don't know. We got into a fight and she left. She got in the car and she left." And I said, "Well, when the medical examiner's office called you, why didn't you answer, why didn't you talk to them?" He hung up on them. They called and he hung up on them. Now, his response was, I told them to kiss my ass because they're trying to tell me that I owe them $25. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Okay. Apparently, he and my sister were going for marriage counseling at the Gloucester County Mental Health Center. So when he heard Gloucester County Medical Examiner call, he thought it was them collecting for a copayment. No, no. I wish somebody would have put him in a Gloucester County mental institution. That's really what I wish, but that's not what happened, you know. Um, so I'm like, so where's my sister? He's like, I don't know. So I start calling around to our friends. I couldn't find her. And the whole time, the cop and the medical examiner are sitting there telling me that that's my sister dead on the table. They really didn't believe me. And I was like, well, what car? What was the car? I was like, she had a Grand Am at the time, like a Pontiac or something. And I don't even remember what the car was, but the car wasn't even the right color, let alone the right make. And so I finally called her place of work. It was her day off, so I didn't really expect her to be there, but then I thought, what the heck? Well, she answers the phone. And I'm like, "What are you doing at work?" And she's like, "Well, I got into a fight with my husband and I didn't have any place to go, so I decided to come to work." And I'm like, "Well, great. You need to come pick me up from the morgue because guess what? You're supposedly dead." So she gets up here to the morgue and she comes to pick me up. And I'm like telling the cop and the medical examiner, "This is my sister. See, this is her." Right. So she pulls out a picture. They asked for her ID and everything. And they had a picture of the dead girl and a picture of my sister, and they said, "Can you tell the difference between these two people?" Yes, one is alive. One is my sister. The other one isn't. Hello? Well, it turned out that the dead girl was actually one of my sister's friends. My sister apparently left her wallet or something in the girl's car, or her purse or something was left in the girl's car. So they have my sister's name in the dead girl's car. And then, of course, my sister was over dramatic and she was like one of those bipolar type of people with the, "Oh my God, Desiree's dead. Oh my God, what am I going to do now? Desiree's dead." And I'm not saying she shouldn't have been upset that her friend was dead, but it was just like, I don't know. She was over dramatic. And and then get this. They actually had already signed the death certificate for her. So it took her 6 months to be declared alive. Go figure, right? Don't die in New Jersey. Don't even have a relative die in New Jersey cuz it'll take you forever to get declared alive again. And so uh So that was when I was 16. When I was like 21, 22, something like that, I got a call from the local trauma unit hospital, the hospital trauma unit, and um 10 count would know this. Cooper Medical Center is like the major hospital in our area that's where they medevac people. That's where like they take people that are on death's door, really. And all they would tell me was, "Your sister was involved in a car accident. It was a multiple car accident. You need to get your mother up to the hospital right away." Well, remember, my mother was old and, she was in stroke range all the time. She had a heart condition. I was always concerned for her. So, my mother worked nights at the post office too. So, I had to go pick up my mother and then take her to the hospital. And they have us sitting in the hospital for hours. We're sitting there for hours trying to, all right, bye, Mark. Thanks for stopping in. Love you too. Right. So, we're sitting there for hours, and all they told us was that there were three of them that were in in the hospital. One was driving under the influence and caused the accident. One died, and one came in unconscious. And they wouldn't tell us who was who. So we're sitting there for hours thinking either my sister's dead or she caused the accident. Um, And so the nurse comes over to me and says, "I heard your mother say that she has a heart condition." And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, we need to tell you we don't want your mother to have an incident, but we want you to come and identify your sister's body. Your sister was the one that didn't make it. She was dead on arrival." So I'm like, "Okay, well, let me go do this first. Don't tell my mom." And so I go to the I go to the morgue, and this is a different hospital. It's not even the same morgue I was in before. And I go down there and it's not her. And I'm like, deja vu. How the hell could this happen twice in a lifetime? And I'm telling them that's not her. And they're like, "No, that's her." I'm like, "No, it's not her. It's not my sister. I can't believe I gotta keep telling you people that she's alive." Right? And it turned out that the paramedics put the wrong car on the toe tags. So the dead girl's car identification got put on my sister's toe, and my sister was brought in unconscious. And of course, The other one that caused the accident had been under influence and couldn't tell them anything. So I told the nurse, I was like, oh my God, guess what? You just sent the dead girl's parents up to my sister. That's how they're going to find out that their kid's dead. So they had to go rush up to the room to go stop them before they, and it was just not good. And that girl's name was Kim. I'll never forget. Her name was Kim, and she was only 22 years old. It was crazy. But yep, those are the kinds of weird things that have happened in my life. You know, it's kind of, I love my sister though. Shady, you probably like these stories about my sister because you know, she uh she was feisty and she lived life and she just she's only 47 when she died. And now I'm older than her and I'm like, what the heck? Yeah, 10 count says a lot of shooting victims from our area go to Cooper Trauma Medical Center. Special Forces medics would do training there. Oh, I didn't know that. Huh, interesting. So the Special Forces medics go there to do training for gunshot wounds. Hmm. Yeah, nice and competent adults. Yes, you're right. Yeah. So I guess you could say that that stuff was traumatic for me, but my sister was really fun. Um, I miss her. She was gorgeous. She looked like Angelina Jolie. She had this great body and she knew it. And she'd walk around in these dental floss bikinis, and yeah, she was great. She Her husband was in an accident and he couldn't have kids, so she calls me and my other sister up one day, and my one sister had already had 3 kids, and Rhonda says to me, I really have to ask you two something. Would you mind, one of you having a baby for me? I really want a baby. And my one sister goes, of course I'd have a baby for you. Of course. Of course. And I look at her and I was like, yo, it's not her that can't have kids. It's her husband. She could get in vitro and have a kid herself. Rhonda's head snapped like the girl from The Exorcist. And she was like, I'm not ruining this body. Gail already had 3 kids and you're fat. So who cares? Who cares what you two look like? But I'm not ruining this body. I'm like, oh my God. And she was just so funny. Like, she was a biker babe. She was beautiful. She'd go to bike week. And one time she called me up and she was like, would you fly down here? I'm like, no. She's like, please, please, please fly. No, I'm not flying down there. And she's like, well, I want you to do the Cabbage Patch with me. I'm like, you know what? I'm even afraid to ask. What the hell does that mean? And she's like, tag team coleslaw wrestling. You could beat the hell out of the women, and I'll just strut around the bikini and we'll win. I'm like, I can't believe that we even have the same mother. Just really can't believe it. No. And then she had called up my mother crying because she was upset that she came in second place in a wet t-shirt contest. And my mother was like, what are you talking about? And she goes, yeah, I came in second place. I can't believe it. And she's like, my mother's like, well, what the heck? What the heck did your husband say? And Ron's just like, well, he said I should have won too. The winner actually had fake boobs. I should have won. And my mother's like, your husband wasn't upset that you entered a wet t-shirt contest. And Rhonda was shocked. And she's like, well, duh, Mom. Who do you think paid the $500 for me to enter? But if I would have won, I would have won $5,000. And I'm mad because that chick had fake boobs.
I'm like, wow. Like, wow. So, I don't know. Do these things happen to other people or is it just me? I mean, have any of you actually been told that you had family members that were dead and they weren't? Or, you know, had crazy relatives? Because it seems like everybody's crazy in my family. Like, I did Ancestry. Ancestry can be creepy. Did any of you ever do the Ancestry.com and try to look for stuff? And you hope that you're going to find something good? Like, it's crazy. My one sister's husband, I found his whole family. They were all generals and captains in the wars, and like I'm talking Civil War and Revolutionary War and everything. And he's related to people from Johns Hopkins doctors and deans that wrote all kinds of books and stuff. And oh no, it's just me. Thanks. But like my family, it was like in like 1859, my Irish great grandfather got a ticket for driving a horse and buggy drunk, a drunk driver in a horse and buggy. You know, and it was actually in the newspaper. That's how I found out. And another one, my great grandfather in 1939, he got drunk in South Philly and he intercepted a football game and at 83 years old. Yeah, everybody in my family, like on my mom's side, like they die in their 80s, like 80, 83. They're all almost 83. So he jumps up and he grabs a football from these teenage kids were playing football, and he intercepts their game, runs down the hobbles down the street, and he was drunk, and the boys were probably drunk and clobbered him and put him in the hospital and broke his ribs, and it was in the newspaper. It was in the newspaper that he got his ribs broken from a football game. And so, like 2 weeks later, he died. And, he got pneumonia and he couldn't breathe because of the broken ribs. And I'm like, man, was it really worth it to die over a freaking football game? Like, I don't think so. Uh, I don't think so, but that's the kind of thing I found on Ancestry. Um, my German side of my family, they were investigated by the FBI for violation of the Espionage Act during World War One, and they were continued to be watched during World War Two. I actually have an FBI file on that I found. That was kind of interesting. Uh, there are other members of my family that were filed by the FBI much later, like when I was a kid. Jersey stuff. Think Sopranos. That stuff actually happens. It's kind of funny though, because when you grow up like that, coming out to like someplace like Missouri is completely different. I joked a couple times in some videos that it felt like everybody out here was in a cult because they were all too happy and nobody threatened anybody. And I'm like, wow, you know, you have to have a certain kind of attitude to live out there. So, um, I feel like even I'm slowing down with the way I think and the way I do things. I don't have that rush, go mentality that I had in the Northeast. And it was funny because I said use guys and y'all in the same sentence not that long ago, and I had to catch myself. I'm like, what the hell? It's a cult. That's right. That's exactly what I said, Slim. It's a cult. So, Wolfman, what's your favorite horror film? Was it you who said Psycho? I really liked American Werewolf in London. So everybody remember that? Or
My Bloody Valentine was a good one too. That was like 1981. It's like at the very end, he goes, Sarah, be my bloody Valentine. And it just like runs like chills.
I'll never say y'all.
Well, I didn't mean to say it.
But it's kind of funny though because we have some place called Rita's Water Ice. If 10 Count's still in here, he'll say that, everybody goes to Rita's. Be cool, go to Rita's. That's the jingle. And they just opened a Rita's Water Ice here. So that was kind of cool. Werewolf was great. Yeah. You're not really a movie fan? Okay. Well, yeah, American Werewolf in London. I thought that was really cool, and when I was a kid, it kind of was scary. There's a couple scenes where the wolf just. I think part of the music is makes it scary too in certain scenes, like the sound effects and stuff, and later it was played on Comedy Central, and it's like how? Like everything's changed. How? Yeah, it was gory. It was gory, but the special effects were amazing for the time. Like, up until then, you didn't actually see like, hands and fingers extending and stuff like that. It was more like trick photography. And so having that kind of claymation and special effects that just molded and sculpted things, it was kind of cool. But I'm trying to think of what other. I mean, Freddy, Freddy Krueger, that one scared the hell out of me. My brother was afraid of Friday the 13th, but I think that's because where we lived, But Freddy Krueger, I think Nightmare on Elm Street, when that first came out, that was really original because there's no way to escape, you know. When you're going up against somebody that's real, there's always a chance you can hide, that you could kill them, that somebody else could come and shoot them, you know. But heck, Jason, they wound up in Jason 10. They put him out in the outer space. But when it comes to Freddy Krueger, we all have to sleep sometime. Johnny Depp was in that. I met Johnny Depp when I was 12. But come on, guys. Anybody else have any kind of weird horror, like ghost things going on? I'll tell you, some of my students are scary, scare the heck out of me. Ooh. I had a student that like 8 times on one night didn't even pull the brakes and then jumped out on the backing pad. And I was like, you got to pull the brakes. You have to pull the brakes. And I was like outside the truck and on the passenger side, and she just jumped out. Didn't pull the brakes. I had to jump inside the truck and pull the brakes. That was scary. And then new students, they don't understand how dangerous it is when people just go walking across pads and stuff. So you got brand new students walking in front and behind this terrible student that's not pulling the brakes. Jason Takes Manhattan. I remember that one. One of the Jasons was in 3D. Yeah, that's creepy. Scream. I like Scream. Scream was a good one. There was one called Happy Birthday to Me. It came out there about the same time as Bloody Valentine. But I think something that's more scary is like like the Omen, and the Exorcist, the evil forces, that kind of thing, like Amityville Horror. Anybody ever read Amityville Horror book? That book scared me. Of course, I was young when I read it, but that scared me. Yeah, pull the airline faster than chasing the truck. Yeah, but I was on the passenger side, so I didn't have a choice. Um, I actually had somebody that uh I had somebody that I was outside the truck and we were on a slant and she locked herself outside the truck and didn't set the brakes. And we were on this hill, and the truck went rolling right past me, and I pulled the brakes, and I was like, "Oh my God." And it I would have appreciated that if she was a student. She wasn't. She was an experienced driver of 2.5 years, did that. Evil Dead. Yes, Evil Dead was good. You know, Evil Dead 2 was really popular at the time. I was doing the haunted houses for Halloween, and I had these, like, some of the decorations were rigged up on my ceiling, and as the kids were walking by, I was pulling the fishing string that was attached to the decorations, and they were flying down and hitting them. It was great. Children of the Corn. Children of the Corn was scary because Malachi and Isaac were creepy. And it's kind of funny that you brought that up because when I was in TNT, if any of you have been to Warren, Missouri, or Warrenton, Missouri, there's one of those cave type of places like the quarry that we deliver to. And when you go there, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. It's completely pitch black. And so I'm driving down this road that says 35 miles per hour, and I have my high beams on, and it was scary. I couldn't see anything. And my trainer wakes up and he's like, "Why are you going so slow?" Because I'm like doing 15, 20 miles per hour. I couldn't see. And he's like, "Why are you going so slow?" I'm like, "Hello? I can't see." He's like, "Put your high beams on." I'm like, "They are." And he gets up to like reach across and then he turned them off. And then he goes, "Oh, they were on." I'm like, "Yeah, they were on. Hello." And he's like, "Well, speed up." I'm like, "No, because something's going to jump out at me. Like, this looks like Children of the Corn or somebody in a ski mask and a freaking, you know, machete is going to jump out at any time." And he's like, "Well, if they do, just run them over." Okay. And then all of a sudden, what happens? I tell him something's going to jump in front of us. Nothing's going to jump in front of us. And a big an owl with a wingspan of like 8 feet, just goes right in front of the freaking windshield. And I said, "See, I told you something was going to fly." And he says to me, "What? I didn't see anything." I was like, "That's it. You're never driving this truck again at night once the sun goes down because now I can't trust you to even see." I already questioned whether or not you could drive. I know for sure you're not really human. And, you know, couldn't freaking see. But yeah, it looked like Children of the Corn. You know, I was trying to think of I did have a student that scared me so much at night one time that it's the only student I ever forced to get up out of the chair. And I'm like, "Pull over right here." And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Just get up. Just get up. We're going back to the terminal." And she's like, "What? What?" I'm like, "Nope." And that was it. I didn't let her drive at night anymore either. I didn't trust her. And she was so bad. I had other students at the time. My other two students did not want to be with that one because they thought she was scary. And when I would take her out driving or on a load, the other two would make me text them to them know that I made it back safely because they were so afraid of her driving. I was like, "Yep, scary people." But I guess you don't really have to do scary things to create somebody else's pulse to go right, pumping. My crazy sister Rhonda, she asked me to take her to a concert one time. Poison and Warrant. Does anybody remember them? Warrant sang Cherry Pie. To this day, I think of my sister every time I hear that song. So, she was one of those gorgeous biker babes, like I said. So, what does she do? Now, remember, I'm a straight-laced kind of person. Like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. I never did. And here's my sister, who's the total partying type of person, that she's already smoking pot with the people that are sitting behind us. And I don't know what the heck was in that pot because I never saw her act like this before. But she starts screaming, "Oh, I want Brett. I want to meet Brett." And she like jumps over top of the railing at the concert, and we're on like the second level. We're not like on the ground level. And she tried to shimmy down the rafters, and I've got her by her jean belt loop, holding on, and then she's trying to climb away from me, and then I start to fall, and the two guys that she was smoking weed with are the ones that are holding on to my legs to prevent me from falling. And I'm like, this is just great. This is just great. How I didn't start drinking or doing drugs, I just don't know. Because Lord knows. I don't drink or smoke. How did I end up in a truck? Well, I was already postal. I had been a postal worker for 17 years and I had to get away. So, it's called being crazy, not exactly sane. But it was funny because, so after that ordeal at the concert with Rhonda, right? Years later, like 2 or 3 years later, she wanted me to take her to Woodstock. And I'm like, no, I'm not taking you to Woodstock. And she's like, please, 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 come on, come on, come on. Now, keep in mind, she was 11 years older than me. Remember this. So at this point, I was 19 at the Poison concert with her, you know, so she was well over 30. So here we are talking about Woodstock. And I was probably more like 23 or so, and she's close to 35, somewhere in there. And she's like, oh, okay, 10 count's gonna head out. Gotta go to Walmart. Well, thanks. Talk to you later. Be safe, guy. So, she calls me up and she's like, please, please, please take me to Woodstock. No, I'm not gonna take you to Woodstock. And she's like, come on. I was like, okay, do you remember the last time we went to a concert? And she's like, no, remind me. So I tell her the story, and she goes, oh man, that concert was even better than I remember. I'm like, no, no, I'm not taking to Woodstock. I'm not going to go pee in a field. I'm not going to be stuck in the middle of in the in muddy fields for days while you're drinking and drugging. And then when I lose you, I'm going to have to explain to our mother what the hell happened to you. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not being responsible. So she got mad at me and she hangs up. And a couple hours later, she calls me back. And I was like, no, I'm still not taking the concert. She goes, no, 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 it's not about that. I'm at work now. I'm like, okay, then what do you call me for? She goes, I wanted to know, is it legal for your boss to fire you, but then want you to sign a paper saying you'll never work for another one of their stores for the rest of your life? I'm like, no, I don't know. And she's like, well, am I supposed to sign it or what? I was like, I really don't know and I don't care. And she's like, come on, you're my sister. You're supposed to tell me what to do. I said, okay, you know what? Tell them to shove their paper and then leave. And then next year, go get your job back again and then torture them some more like you're torturing me. Do that so that I feel like I'm not alone in this world, that you can torture somebody else. And she's like, oh, great. That's a good idea. Thanks. I'll talk to you later. I'm like, wow. Hey, Bryson, how you doing? Just woke up. Well, hi. Uh, since you missed it, guess what? Today is 8 years since I got my CDL here at Prime, and I start telling crazy haunted stories and past life stories, and we're talking a little bit about horror films and that kind of thing and books. And so, do you believe in ghosts? And have you had any kind of past life type of weird stuff happen to you? 'Cause one of our
guests in here saw a very strange girl hanging off the side, sitting on the side of a bridge that called the police and everything, was concerned, and they never found her. It turns out that there's lots of people that commit suicide off of that bridge, and she might just have been one of those lost souls. We don't know. And I did have a neighbor who her husband died on Christmas Day, and she had one of those, I don't know, the older people in this group will remember those old ceramic Christmas trees that on the ends of the branches it had the little lights, and you just plugged it in, and we usually had it like on top of our table or television or something. Well, this lady Barbara, she she had that tree for like 15 or 20 years or something, and it didn't work. But her daughter bought it for her, so she never threw it out. And here, her very, very close friend, a guy friend who happened to be a trucker, was killed in a trucking accident. And and a, the very next year, when she put that out, on the anniversary, he died right before Christmas. It was like, I don't know, December 23rd or something like that. But it was the first anniversary of his death. That Christmas tree lit up, and it hadn't worked in years. And she got all creeped out, and she was so scared that she actually left her house and came over to mine. I was a little kid at this time. I was probably like 4 or 5 years old, but I remember how freaked out and scared she was. I remember him too. His name was Lou. Oh, see, Bryson has one of those trees. Yeah, Slim says she doesn't miss the Walmart drops. I like Walmart loads though, because Walmart's easy backing, and you know that they're going to take at least 2 hours, maybe four, so you could definitely catch up on some sleep with no problem. One thing about me being on that mini fleet was they had a tendency to keep sending me to this one customer up in Detroit. No matter where I went, no matter what part of the country I was in, it was like there was some place that was always delivering to that one place in Detroit. And it was such a pain in the customer to get in and out of. I just hated it. Yeah, I'm not a morning person either. Ew. Totally not a morning person. But you know what? I have dreams. And
And
now, does anybody have nightmares? I used to remember my dreams. And years and years ago, I was involved with an alcoholic. I was with him for like 7 years. And when his alcoholism would really get out of control, it's so weird because at the time I didn't connect this dream to him, but now I realize that's what it was. When he would start drinking again, I would have this dream that um Jason Voorhees was chasing me through my mother's house. And it's hard to explain because I wouldn't wake up as if it was a nightmare. Like, I didn't have that panicked feeling, but I had this stress feeling. And it wasn't until after I dumped him and years later that I realized, I was like, you know what? I haven't had that dream anymore. And then I was like, you know what? No, it was from him. And I was recently going through another situation with somebody else that I was close to, and it wasn't the same kind of situation at all. But what was really interesting was it wasn't Jason Voorhees this time that was chasing me. It was Michael Myers from Halloween. And again, I wasn't like terrified that I was going to die. And the house was not
old and crumbling apart like my mother's was in the original dreams. The house was like my mom's house, but it was like new and pretty. So it was just weird because I like woke up from that dream and I was like, okay, so let me see if I get this straight. Yeah, I'm having a situation and some bad times with my boyfriend, but yet it's not the same because it's still happy and new and instead of a crumbling scary house. I don't know. It's weird how our subconscious works. Hmm. Going to Walmart in Henderson, North Carolina. I haven't been there in a while. Haven't been there in a while. Hmm. So what kind of books or movies you watch, Bryson? Do you listen to audiobooks? Never went to that Walmart. I don't really think there's too many Walmarts that are quote unquote bad. I mean, there are some that are a little bit more disorganized than others. There's one in Alabama that's absolutely horrendous, and they bring in like 50 trucks and will tell you, okay, well, doors 1 through 10, whenever they open up, just back in. And it's like, okay, but now we all have to pay attention to who got here first, or you're going to have fist fights in the damn parking lot. That one sucks, you know. Um, I've had a couple situations like that. There's one out in Utah, Corinne, sometimes where they have you staged to park as you're waiting for a door can get really congested because it's not set up the same way. Yeah, David says just slow. I'd still rather go to a Walmart than someplace like in LA or some of those customers, those rinky-dink customers like in Philadelphia or Jersey or Detroit. I'm gonna bash on them again just because I went there too much this year. uh, yeah. What about animals? Have any of your animals ever acted weird, like you think they see some ghosts? See, I gotta turn the lights down. Maybe it'll put me more in a ooh Halloween scary. Cleveland's like that. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Okay, that one is the one that upset a lot of Halloween fans, the Michael Myers, John Carpenter fans. Why? Because that one had absolutely nothing to do with Michael Myers. Um, Talk about cult. Shoo. You know, that's the one that they were making the Halloween masks. And what was really weird was the security people were all robots. I should go back and watch that one again. What's crazy is, though, anybody of our generation will never forget the tune. you know, 3 more days to Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. 3 more days to Halloween, Silver Shamrock. You know, now it's going to be in my head all night. How about Invasion of the Body Snatchers? That was creepy. Could you imagine, like, coming home and seeing your wife or your husband or whatever and find out that's not really them? Like, cool. And what about costumes? Do you guys ever like go to costume parties or anything like that? I always dressed up for Halloween, like I said earlier, even at the post office. And here I've done different, like, Halloween costumes and stuff. But, like, at the post office, I was a clown and when I first started, I was Marilyn Monroe, and when I was younger, I really did look like Marilyn Monroe. I just didn't appreciate it. But I look so much like her that the the Filipinos that we worked with couldn't pronounce my name as Kirsten, so they called me Marilyn, and I worked there for almost 2 decades, and it just turned into they really thought that was my name. They called me that so much. It's funny. You don't dress up for Halloween? Come on. I bet you'd take my candy though. Mm. Somebody asked me if I get scared being out on the road, being a woman. Mm. I keep trying to convince people that, like, when you're out on the road, you really are around so many other people at the truck stops that I really am not scared of things. Just be aware of your surroundings and stuff. But I don't know. I think I'm going to do a couple videos. One's going to be about like predatory leasing because that commission is getting built back up again and they're supposed to be looking at certain things. And um, I know that they're talking about speed limiters again and people are getting upset about that. And, freight rates are still not where people want them to be. Am I back to being company again? Well, yeah, Bryson. I I went on a mini fleet, but I didn't go lease. I was still a company driver with the company benefits as a prime driver. So, uh I wound up with a physical issue that I came off the road. I came back local and I went back to the training pad. Uh just because I wanted to be able to go to the doctor and get checked out, make sure everything's okay and take care of some things with that. But I think I'm gonna wind up going back on the road eventually, probably in the next couple months. We'll see. Uh, training, there's changes here at Prime and they really don't want us training locally anymore. They want us training out on the road, and I'm not going to be able to do that. That type of CDL training with my cat. So that means I'm not training because I'm not going to do team training again. It's just too exhausting. Sure, I can make $3,000 to $4,000 a week doing it if I can run hard enough. But honest to God, truth is, can't sleep. It's exhausting. You know, even money has been hard for everybody. Everybody's still hurting, and I don't even want to go that route. I mean, I guess I would if I had to, but I'm not at that point yet. So, but anyway, I think I'm going to get going. So, thanks guys for popping in. I appreciate it. I love how you guys will pop in. I got my diehard fans. All of you that are in this group, you've been with me for forever now, and I appreciate it. I want you guys to stay safe out there. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself during this winter season. Maybe I'll see you out there trucking along. Oh, Bryson took a big pay cut too. Yeah, did you change jobs or what? Did you change companies? Because it just sucks. It really does, you know. Um, but it is what it is. But be safe out there, guys. Talk to you later, and I hope to see you out here trucking along. Bye.